The corridor outside Medbay Theta did not echo the way corridors were supposed to. Sound here was swallowed. Footsteps died mid-stride. Breath turned into a faint, trembling hush that felt less like air moving and more like a vast, patient organism listening. The station axioms reach hung in orbit around a violet-striped gas giant that filled half the sky beyond the viewport. Its storms churning like the exposed thoughts of a god. Radiation curtains shimmered across the glass, painting the metal floor in shifting bands of blue and green, as if reality itself was struggling to decide what color it should be. Somewhere deep in the station's bones, ancient fusion cores murmured like sleeping beasts, and on a narrow medical cot inside Medbay Theta, a human named Evan Calder lay staring at the ceiling, waiting to find out whether he was about to die. The ceiling tiles were hexagonal, softly luminous, filled with bioluminescent threads that pulsed in slow, synchronized rhythms. Alien design, alien materials, alien logic. Even after 6 months on Axiom's reach, Evan still couldn't stop thinking of it as a cathedral built by something that had never been human and never intended to be. His right arm lay strapped to a translucent restraint, veins faintly visible beneath pale skin. A transparent foretube ran into the crook of his elbow, carrying a slow trickle of pale blue fluid into his bloodstream. It tingled, not painfully, but with a cold, spreading sensation that reminded him of winter seeping through a cracked window. He had been injured during a salvage run, microfractures in his ribs, internal bruising, radiation exposure from a ruptured reactor shell. Not fatal, not yet. But human medicine didn't travel well out here. On a station run by half a dozen alien species, the human wing was a converted storage bay. Understaffed and undersupplied, so he had been transferred to Medbay Theta, where the alien nurse worked. Her name, as best as he could pronounce it. Washtalish moved like liquid shadow, tall and slender, her elongated limbs flowing with a grace that made even simple tasks look ritualistic. Her skin was a soft opalescent gray, faintly translucent in places, revealing subtle patterns of glowing bioluminescence beneath. Her eyes were large, black, and reflective, like pools of ink that could mirror a person's soul if you stared long enough. She wore a medical harness, studded with floating Hall interfaces, each one adjusting itself in response to her thoughts. She stood beside Evan now, holding a slender injector filled with a swirling, iridescent substance. "This will stabilize your cellular decay," she said softly, her voice layered with faint harmonic overtones. "It will prevent further radiation-induced necrosis." Evan swallowed. "You're sure it's safe for humans?" There was a pause, a fractional hesitation that would have been invisible if he hadn't already been afraid. Her eyes flicked to the injector, then back to him. "Yes," she said, but when the needle pierced his skin and the fluid slid into his veins like cold fire, her fingers trembled. Evan gasped as the sensation spread, not just cold, but wrong. It wasn't like any medication he had ever felt. It wasn't pain exactly. It was more like his nerves were being gently retuned, as if someone were adjusting the frequency of his existence. Stella's pupils constricted, her bioluminescent markings flared, and in a voice barely above a whisper, she said this wasn't for humans. Evan's heart slammed against his ribs. "What?" Her hand snapped over his mouth, not hard, but firm enough to silence him. "Don't say a word," she whispered, leaning close. Her breath smelled faintly of ozone and something floral, something alien. "If the station's medical AI detects what is now in your bloodstream, it will terminate you for contamination risk." Fear surged through him. "You injected me with something that will get me killed." "I injected you with something that will change you," she said. "If you survive?" She pulled her hand away and stepped back, her face a mask of tightly controlled panic. "You must leave Medbay Theta," she said. "Now, before the system realizes what has happened." "What did you give me?" Evan demanded, his vision already beginning to blur at the edges, colors bleeding into one another like wet paint. Stella hesitated. Then, quietly as if speaking a forbidden prayer, she said, an adaptive xenocellular catalyst. Designed to allow my species to survive extreme stellar radiation, it rewrites cellular structures. It is not meant to be reversible. Evan felt something twist deep inside his chest. You're telling me I'm not human anymore? I am telling you, she said, eyes shimmering, that you are about to become something the galaxy has never seen. Before he could say anything else, the station's warning lights flared crimson. Stala's head snapped up. They know. She whispered. She ripped the IV line from his arm, slapped a med patch over the wound, and shoved a small, humming device into his hand. Emergency exit, she said. Cargo Base 7. There's a shuttle there. Get as far from Axiom's reach as you can before the transformation begins. And you? He asked. Her gaze softened, just for a moment. I will tell them it was a system malfunction. They will not believe me, but they might let me live. Then she turned and vanished into the red-lit chaos of the med bay. Evan swung his legs off the cot, the room tilting violently around him. His heart was racing. His skin felt too tight, like it was being stretched over something larger inside. His hearing sharpened, picking up the distant hum of reactors. The whisper of air recycling, the faint, frightened breathing of aliens in nearby rooms. He staggered into the corridor as alarms wailed. Security drones already lifting from their docking cradles. And as he ran, he began to feel it. Something inside him was waking up. The journey from Medbay Theta to Cargo Bay 7 felt like crossing a dying world. Axiom's reach was built on layer centuries of expansion. Patchwork engineering from dozens of species. Some corridors gleamed with pristine alloy and glowing sigils. Others were rusted, dim, and forgotten, lined with old conduits that hummed with barely restrained power. Evan ran through them all, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The catalyst in his blood was spreading. He could feel it, a subtle heat behind his eyes, a strange tingling along his spine. His thoughts felt wider, as if new rooms were being added to the inside of his mind. He passed a viewport and caught his reflection. For a moment, it didn't look like him. His pupils were dilated, swallowing the color of his irises. Faint lines of pale blue light traced the veins beneath his skin. Pulsing in time with his heartbeat, he tore his gaze away and kept running. Security drones screamed overhead, their searchlights cutting through the station's dimness. He ducked into maintenance shafts, crawled through vents, slick with condensation, and pushed his aching body farther than it had ever gone before. Fear drove him, but beneath, the fear was something else. A strange, terrible curiosity. What was he becoming? By the time he reached Cargo Bay 7, his legs were shaking, his vision filled with ghostly afterimages of light and motion. The bay itself was cavernous, its massive doors sealed against the vacuum of space. Rows of docked shuttles and cargo haulers sat in shadow, their hulls scarred by years of hard travel. Automated loaders stood frozen, like skeletal sentinels. Evan stumbled toward the nearest small shuttler, battered, to seat craft with faded human registry markings as he reached it. His knees gave out. He collapsed against the hull, gasping as a wave of pain ripped through his body. It wasn't localized. It was everywhere, as if every cell was being pulled apart and rewritten at the same time. He screamed into the empty bay. Images flooded his mind, not memories, not dreams, but something else. Vast stellar storms, blazing radiation fields, alien cities built in the coronae of stars. His body arched as his bones subtly shifted, joints loosening, muscles tightening. His skin prickled as microscopic structures rearranged themselves. Reinforcing, adapting, it felt like dying. It felt like being born somehow. Through the agony, he managed to drag himself into the shuttle and slam the hatch closed. Launch, he rasped, barely recognizing his own voice. The autopilot engaged. And moments later, the shuttle tore free from Axiom's reach, streaking into the star-drenched void. Behind him, the station shrank to a glittering speck against the gas giant's endless storms. Ahead of him, only the unknown. He drifted for days. The shuttle's autopilot took him away from populated trade routes. Following some default escape protocol that prioritized isolation over rescue, the stars outside the viewport blurred into long, shimmering streaks. Evan lay strapped into the pilot's chair, drifting in and out of consciousness as the transformation continued. When he was awake, he could feel it. His senses were no longer bounded by his skin. He could feel the faint electromagnetic whisper of the shuttle's systems, the distant radiation of nearby stars. He could taste the chemical composition of the recycled air. Loneliness pressed in on him, vast and suffocating. He thought of Earth, of blue skies and rain and the smell of soil after a storm. He thought of the people he had left behind, of the life he had traded for a paycheck on a distant alien station. Had he already lost all of that? Or was he still human, somewhere beneath the changes? The shuttle eventually dropped out of hyperspace near a barren, unnamed world, a gray sphere, scarred by craters and laced with faint traces of ancient structures. A dead colony. The autopilot had found a place where no one would look for him. Evan guided the shuttle down through the thin atmosphere, landing amid a field of broken spires and half-buried domes. As he stepped out onto the cracked surface, he felt no need to adjust his breathing. His lungs drew in the thin, toxic air and filtered it effortlessly. He realized, with a mix of awe and horror, that he no longer needed the suit he wore. The alien catalyst had made him something else, something that could survive here. He walked through the ruins, the wind whispering through shattered architecture. Holographic signs flickered weakly, displaying alien script over empty streets. Abandoned personal artifacts lay scattered, data pads, fragments of clothing. The silent echoes of lives abruptly ended in one half-collapsed building. He found a still-functioning terminal when he touched it. The screen flared to life, responding not to his fingers, but to the faint electromagnetic patterns his altered nervous system now emitted. Logs scrolled past, telling the story of the colony's interstellar radiation surge that had wiped out most of the population in hours. Only those with advanced xenocellular adaptations had survived, and even they had eventually left or died. Evan sank to the floor, the weight of it all crushing him. He was alone on a dead world. No longer fully human, not fully anything else. A voice echoed in the ruined hall. Not alone. Looked up to see a shimmering holographic figure, a being of shifting light and shadow. "Am the colony's caretaker intelligence," it said, "and you are something new." They spoke for hours about humanity, about survival, about what it meant to change in order to live. The AI told him that the catalyst in his blood would continue to evolve him, slowly turning him into a bridge between species, a being capable of surviving where no human ever could. You could explore the stars no one else can reach, it said. You could become a guardian of the forgotten. Evan stared out at the dead world, at the vast sky beyond. He thought of Stala, of her trembling hands, of her whispered warning. He had been given a choice without ever being asked. But now, here he could make one of his own. He could search for a way to reverse the transformation, to cling to what he had been, or he could embrace what he was becoming. He chose to live. As the distant hum of incoming signals began to echo through the ancient sensors, a sign that other ships, other survivors, might one day find this place, Evan felt a strange sense of purpose settle into his altered bones. He was no longer just a man. He was a story the universe had never told before. And somewhere, in the endless dark between stars, the future was listening.